I'm going to let each person introduce themselves. And if you would say a sentence or two about the definition of food equity or food insecurity, however you're comfortable discussing. Okay?
Good evening. My name is Derek Reyes. I'm the executive director of STEP, which has St. Louis Park's food shelf. And we deal with food insecurity every day. And what food insecurity is when someone doesn't get the food that they need and want to be healthy and fulfilled.
Excuse me. I'm Sharon Lehrman. I'm a resident of St. Louis Park and a member of the Health in the Park. Anyway, I'm also a registered dietitian, so in terms of my personal and professional life, I have a strong feeling about the importance of healthy food for people, not just calories, but making sure that people are getting healthy food in their lives. And I believe the statistic is that 1 in 10 Minnesotans is food insecure. And so I also love that Julie is bringing gardening and hoping that we can create more gardens for our food bank so we can have lots of fresh produce.
Hi, I'm Linda Enright. I am a registered dietitian also and live and work in the park and have kids in the school district here. I am a volunteer with the School Nutrition Advisory Committee as well as a member of the Health in the Park with the city. And, repeating some of what's been said, of course, but what I see is people, we might be fed, but we're not always nourished. And that's what we're trying to see that continue to improve in our school and our community as well. So helping people to have access so they can be not only fed well but also nourished well is how I see the importance of it.
Hi, my name is Maria Reyes, and I am a 20-year resident of St. Louis Park and also over 20-year employee of the St. Louis Park School District. I am currently one of the racial equity coaches in St. Louis Park, and part of my racial equity work is learning more about equitable access to resources, and that's why I'm involved with SLP Seeds.
Hi, my name is Fatima Shot. I am a resident of St. Louis Park for 10 years now. I also work for an organization called Interfaith Outreach that works with people, low-income communities. And Food Shelf is our biggest program. And so to me, food insecurity is where families, they have to think about or worry about feeding their children or themselves, and they have to make that choice. And so it's really important to me that we have in this discussion today.
Hi, I'm Cassie Nystrom. I work for Hennepin County Public Health Promotion, and food security and food equity to me go hand in hand. I think because I wear a government hat now, I've always worked in a nonprofit sector and now working in the government sector. I think policy really needs to happen that allows us to be able to grow our food. So thinking about the farmers, sort of flipping the food chain so that farmers can afford to grow us food that we can then afford and make sure that it's fresh and healthy for everyone. So we look a lot at social determinants of health and looking at all the other reasons why also we are not having the food and the access that's equitable for everybody. Hi.
Hey. Thank you all for being here. So I have some questions that we can pose to the panel, but I'm hoping that it also can sort of organically transform into more of a conversation, and perhaps people here have some questions that they'd like to ask of the panel. So I'm just going to start with a very broad, high-level overview question that's actually multi-pronged, and I'm going to pass the mic as best as I can, so let's all just take turns. in your opinion, what obstacles or challenges exist in St. Louis Park for equitable access to safe, fresh food?
Part of the work that I do is I work in multi-unit housing developments, and I talk to residents about what's working and what's not working for them to access fresh food, fresh and affordable and culturally appropriate food. And often what I hear is transportation is a major barrier. So if you can't get to the spaces that you need to get the food, then you're without. And then you're buying more unhealthy foods at convenience stores. So I would say transportation has become, from what I have heard from residents, one of the main issues.
As I said, I'm involved in the School Nutrition Advisory Committee and have been for a number of years. And one of the challenges, I think, as a community in our district has been the facilities that we have not had. Our buildings are old, and so in the school district we haven't had a lot of ability to prepare fresh food, or unfortunately the desire to do so for a long time. And the money, of course, is always part of that as well. So it's been a big obstacle, I know, in the district to do that for a lot of years. And fortunately, we live in a community that supports its school district, and so with the passing of the referendum in the fall, you know, there's progress being made towards fresh food being cooked at our kitchens. So there's hope for that, but it certainly has been an obstacle in our community, I think, for a long time.
I guess I've had some issues in the past 7 years as far as food goes. Kids are not having enough food at school. They're coming home hungry. There's, not enough food there for everybody. So we're having a struggle with the elementary schools as well as the middle schools, and I'm sure with the high schools. But having plenty of fresh, healthy food for everybody, not just for the first, half of the group, So that's another problem that I thought we'd address.
Well, I think I'm not very well versed in this, but I think that part of the referendum money is going to go into updating our kitchens so we have more food cooked from scratch. I'm getting thumbs up from board members. And so I believe that is in the plan, and that has been our hope all along, that we can provide more food and healthier options for our kids. And so I think that's going to be addressed starting this summer. We're revamping our buildings and yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that really underscores an important piece. The schools are a very important part of the puzzle with addressing food insecurity. 1 in 10 Minnesotans are food insecure, but about 14% of children are insecure. We know that this impacts children more than adults, and the schools are a great resource for addressing it. And I think we need to realize that the schools are a resource, but there's probably always areas of improvement. I'm really happy that the school district has expanded its summer free lunch program, which is something that the federal government pays for and has been available and was finally available all summer long last year at Central, and I think is one of many ways that we can, as a community, work together to address food insecurity.
So I heard you say that transportation is a barrier to access to food, and that sounds correct. Can anyone here on the panel provide more specifics on what the barriers are, or actually what a solution might look like in this city to transportation, to eliminating that barrier of transportation blocking food access?
No. I'll pass it on. I think what I would say, that's not my area, but what I can do and what I like to do as a public health promotion staffer is to then bridge the gaps with other Hennepin County departments and bring these issues to the Public Works Department. And we have seen some good implementation occur based on that. So if I can hear from residents the issue and then take it to the correct departments, that's really good. The other thing is that, as you probably know, your comprehensive plan is under review and close to being completed and will be adopted at the end of the year. And I have seen, and again, not my area of expertise, but I have seen that the city does address transportation. And I do think that there are some grassroots approaches that we could be taking, that if we could even look at it from a regional perspective, there are ways to do some shuttling. There are ways to do, especially for our senior members of the community, doing some trainings on becoming Lyft drivers and or Uber drivers, so then you're generating some income, in addition to creating an internal network so that residents can actually hire their neighbors to be their driver when they need to get places, and working with these types of companies to come up with ways to do some discounts and some incentives. So I don't have the perfect answer, but I do think there's solutions that can be found.
That was a very good answer to a lot of the transportation problems as we see in terms of accessing food. I mean, there's just the lack of good public transportation within St. Louis Park, but I think that would be a big piece, finding other unique solutions of serving, not just transporting people to workplaces across the metro, but just within this community. And I think Lyft and Uber are some promising opportunities, as well as some things that could be public-oriented transportation.
As far as the issue of obstacles that some people are facing when it comes to making sure you have more fresh, healthy eating, is also the expense. These are perishable items. They perish quickly. So when you're also thinking about basically people who are economically disadvantaged, they can't spend that kind of money on something that's going to expire in maybe 3 or 4 days. And then also the convenience of it as well, relating to the transportation, but then the convenience, because sometimes some of the parents are working very long shifts and they don't have time to prepare something that's going to be fresh from scratch every day. So those are some of the obstacles I believe that we have to find. I know that's something that Seeds has been looking at, about maybe having a greenhouse that's for the community to go to be able to get fresh fruit. So that way that would relieve that obstacle for them, knowing that, okay, in some kind of ways it's subsidized. They can easily access fresh fruit and vegetables whenever they need it, and not have to worry about how much that's going to hurt their budget to make sure they can make ends meet every month.
One of the goals of our Cooking Matters classes that we're doing is to help people understand that they can feed themselves and nourish themselves well on a budget. And so, for example, using things like canned and frozen fruits and vegetables, which are not going to go bad, and helping people understand how to use those in their recipes, how to substitute them in places where maybe something is called for fresh. So we hope to be doing more of these classes, and if this is something that you're interested in learning more about how to cook, or you have neighbors that you think would be interested, you should send them to our SLP Seeds website, where we have sort of an interest list going for future classes.
Given that the city is working on a 10-year comprehensive plan, and also I think we can safely assume that much of that plan is probably in place at this point, I guess I would pose to the panel, how do you feel that the 10-year comprehensive plan should address food equity? And I guess if you absolutely could have anything that you want included in there, what would that look like?
Actually, the plan as it's written right now does not include a food plan. And that is something that we have submitted as a request to the city. We also have a petition that's on the SLP. You can get a link to it from the SLP Seeds website to sign the petition saying that you feel that having a comprehensive plan for how the city's going to address food is included in the plan. And we have some sample language for that already that we have submitted to our city council members and to our mayor. And if that's not on the website, I'll make sure Julie puts that up so people can take a look at that and see what it says. But it's crucial that we have that in our plan for the next 10 years of what's coming.
What are some of the things, especially for some of us that perhaps don't have a very deep understanding of what food equity looks like, what are some specific things that you think that the plan should address, or should it just broadly say that there should be a plan for food equity over the next 10 years?
My background is an urban planner, and I, again, am working in public health, so I'm in a unique position in that I am advocating for urban planners to address health equity, and that includes food equity throughout the plan. So it wouldn't be that it would have its little tiny own section. It would actually be something that was woven into the entire plan and represented itself as high of a level as other parts of the plan come through. Planning historically, healthy planning has addressed streetscapes and how a street is planned, and is it walkable, and is it accessible, and those are all very important things. And planners as a practice have done a really good job, I think, at moving that in the right direction. And now we're in a situation where planners are sort of dating public health professionals and the field of public health. And so through our dating phase, we're sort of trying to figure out, how can we really integrate this more wholly into the process? And I'm encouraged to see it happening. We do have city representation from your city here of St. Louis Park showing up to our active communities workshops. And they're at the table, and I can't speak to how well it is being integrated into this plan, but I feel encouraged to see them at the table and seeing what we're encouraging happen. And I can provide also a checklist that Hennepin County put out for planning offices. And what that does is it shows how you could integrate health into each chapter of your comprehensive plan. And so it would include healthy eating, physical activity, smoke-free environments, and with all of that is a thread of equity, and having that be an equitable plan for all residents.
Just real quickly, so where do people access that? I mean, is there an actual website? Maybe you could share the address that people could write down right now so they could actually go there and get that information.
I'll make sure that Julie has access to it, and then she can pass it along and even post to the SEED site, that checklist that I speak of. And as I say, I know that some of your city folks have access to it and I can talk with them and ask that they could maybe make it more accessible on the city page as well.
Awesome.
I found the copy of the resolution that we have submitted. So I will tell you the strategies that are listed on here. One is to conduct a food insecurity study in the city of St. Louis Park to gain a full understanding of the needs of its citizens. Second thing is to implement a public education campaign to help everyone in the community become better informed about the importance of nutrition to physical and mental health. The third thing is to increase the number of community gardens available to residents throughout the city, and including and most especially in the places where there is less access to food and transportation is more of an issue. Fourth thing is to streamline and simplify the process of permitting of food facilities, food trucks, community meals, and other pop-up food service options that serve residents experiencing hunger. And the last one is to eliminate unhealthy food options such as soda and sugary foods from municipal buildings. I think those are the ones that we have. So, yeah.
Derek, I'd like to put you on the spot for a second. Derek's here as a representative of STEP, which is a food shelf that operates here in St. Louis Park. And I thought perhaps, we're talking a lot about systemic change, which is really important, and to gather information about what y'all are passionate about as it relates to food equity. But I also think that it could be of value perhaps if you could just give a brief overview of the ways in which people could benefit from STEP directly if they're worried about something today while the rest of us are working on systemic change.
Well, so STEP is very focused on addressing food insecurity every day, and every day we serve about 35 to 40 families with food. And the things that community members can do in order to help us fulfill our mission are two things. One, if you need assistance or need someone who needs assistance, come to STEP. We are here to serve the community's promise that no one should go hungry here. And there is no shame, there is no reason not to access our resources. Our resources are there for this community, and our resources come from the community. And so that's the second way that you can support us, is by supporting us with food and finances. We are not funded by government in any significant way. We get a couple of small government grants, but the vast majority of our resources come from St. Louis Park. We are the community's response to looking out for each other, because there are struggles in life, and sometimes people need assistance in making sure that they're not hungry, especially children. We really focus on nutrition and having cultural appropriate items and items that are necessary for people's unique dietary needs. And so going back to what we were talking about earlier about fresh food and how expensive fresh food is, and you get a pack of blueberries that look really, really nice, and then the next day half of them are moldy, and it's very disappointing, especially if you spent $5 on those blueberries. One of our big focuses at STEP is to get fresh fruit and vegetables and dairy and protein on a regular basis. And this has been a big focus of our energy. It requires a lot of volunteer time for us to get the food, sort through it every day, and making sure that we are putting out good quality, nutritious food. And so we're always looking for hands-on help too. And the community gardens that have been sprouting up all over St. Louis Park, thanks to SLP seeds, have also been a great benefit to STEP. So we get some of those, some of the plants grown right here in St. Louis Park get brought to STEP, and we get beautiful tomatoes and other things, and people bring things from their backyard gardens too and share it. And that's what, and I'll finish up, but I don't have a position, STEP does not have a position on what the city should do for its 10-year plan, but I will note that food is an integral part of health, as we all know. And health is, of course, vital to every individual and for a community. And what more brings a community together than sharing food? It really is, the definition in my mind of community is sitting down and sharing food. And I think it's so wonderful that we have a gathering like tonight that demonstrates everyone's understanding of that.
Thank you. It's awesome. I guess I'm curious, and perhaps everyone else is, each of you sort of operates in a different arena related to food equity, and I'm curious what you're most excited about as it relates to the work that you're doing, or what you're most hopeful about in terms of progress that we're making towards food equity.
My second grade daughter is here, and she was one of the early recipients, fortunately, of the gardens at Lenox Community Center, which SLP Seeds and Julie started. So I'm just so excited that we're seeing gardens pop up everywhere and getting access for people throughout the city in places where it's needed most. So we've been talking about this for a long time, and it's pretty exciting. So.
I am grateful that Julie and SLP Seeds has inspired and continues to inspire the community in gardening, and in cooking, and in healthy living. We have some teachers from PSI who are excited about starting a garden in our new school in Cedar Manor, who have already met with the facilities people and are already on it to grow a garden and plant the seeds in the next generation. I'm excited that we are starting a cooking class with some children who are here today. And they are our next generation. That's our hope, And so we're starting Cooking Matters with them next week. And it's just... So I'm grateful to you and to what you're doing, because you're planting seeds. And so thank you.
we can finish with a final question, and then if there is anyone else that has anything that they'd like to ask or share. We've talked, obviously, about different ways in which people can advocate and get involved. Do any of you have what would you say is like the most important thing someone can do to advocate on this issue? Should they contact their city council member? Is it just signing the petition? What would you recommend?
That's the hardest question of the night. I think because this is such a multifaceted issue that has so many solutions and needs, I think what I would ask is that everyone think about what they're passionate about in terms of this need and area. What catches their interest, and to just step forward and take action there, because there are so many different things that can be done, and they're all going to contribute to us solving this problem.
That's an excellent answer. It really is, because I have been I call myself a professional volunteer. I'm involved in so many different things. But when I talk to people, they often say oh, it's just so overwhelming. There's just so many needs. And someone said to me one time, pick one or two things that you just really, so if you love gardening, get involved with Julie's organization and help with the gardening. If you like cooking, get involved with Cooking Matters. Come and help with us. If you like the idea of helping at Derek's place, you can volunteer there. You can, supply money and food there. So I just agree with you so much about picking something that you're passionate about and going for it.
Ditto. And as simple as signing the petition, I think that we all feel overwhelmed by all the things that could be improved in the world and in our communities, but one step at a time. And when you see, like I said, when we see what's happened in the last 5 years, and with gardens and with the referendum and with, we're moving forward, that we're at a turning point, I think, in a lot of ways. And so you can do as simple things as sign the petition, call your school board member, call your city council member, get involved in the conversation. Again, helping out at STEP. There's so many opportunities. I just feel grateful. We live in a great community that has a lot of resources to help people, but we all need to keep speaking out.
Yes, show up and walk the talk. And by the way, we're still looking for a volunteer for a cooking class. So if you're available on Tuesday for a couple hours, I'll take you. And I'll take back too for the class.
For me, I'm excited to be here. I was working late, so I had to rush here with my kids. So I know it was not the most convenient for me tonight, but still I'm excited to be part of this conversation. I'm excited that people start talking about food, because food insecurity and food is something personal. I know that a lot of families, through personal or professional, I've met with families who always think about how they will feed their kids, or people don't talk about this, but it's a big issue for families. And I don't think it's okay for kids to go without food, families to worry about and making all those choices, and so I'm excited about this conversation. It's something that needs to happen, and I want to be part of it. I don't know solutions. I don't know what the city or anybody can do, but I also think that it's an important discussion that we should have. The cooking class, I support it 100%. 5 years ago, I was part of a cooking class that has changed my life. So yeah, I know. Now, through that class, when I do shopping or I do grocery shopping, I look at labels. That's something I've never done. I never think about sugar intake, all that, So I know how it is important for people, especially kids, to learn cooking skills. It's a skills that not everybody knows unless you learn. The garden, I discussed with Julia about this. It's also an exciting thing for me. I want to introduce to my kids about the community gardening. I support that 100% too, and I want everybody to be part of that too. So I'm here tonight to support this program, to be part of the discussion, and to learn more about food insecurity in the community.
I think for me, it's just important that we look really holistically at it, and I feel it's important that we put a cultural lens on the issue and make sure that we're not creating sort of a one-size-fits-all solution. I've worked, with many communities throughout Hennepin County, and there isn't one solution. There's many solutions. So I liked somebody saying, sort of put your energy into where your passion is and get involved in a community that you're familiar and comfortable with, or one that you're not familiar and comfortable with. Either way, working together and finding a solution that's not just one for everybody.
Hopefully we're all feeling a little pumped up. There's a lot of work to do. All right, well, thank you so much to our panel. Really appreciate your bringing your expertise and your knowledge on this issue, and look forward to just seeing what continues to happen here in St. Louis Park. I'm going to hand it back to Julie.
Thank you, Todd, for facilitating so well. And I think it's really impressive that you guys have been able to talk so well. And there is so many great things to continue doing. But what we at SEED say is we have a smorgasbord of opportunities for you. From if you think about food, a little sniff, you could just sign the petition. That just takes a second. Or a taste, or a bite, or jump in and join our Cooking Matters classes or our garden programs, our food bank gardens. So we have a lot of sign-ups over here. Please come talk to me. Thank you, all of our wonderful panelists, for being here tonight. It's really a beautiful array, and I think tonight's was just such a good representation of what our city really is. It was a very diverse set of voices. And so for the people that are taking the bus back, you've got about 20 minutes before you get back on the bus. Be sure to go get some extra food. Be sure to sign the petition. Be sure to just enjoy yourselves as much more as you can. Thank you.